Hi, my name is Dave Masson, and I'm the Director of Enterprise Security at cybersecurity company Darktrace. In this HelpNet security video, I'll be talking about government, and specifically how government organizations can get and stay steps ahead of attackers. Now, through paying attention to news, I'm sure you will all be aware of the increase in cyber attacks against pretty much all parts of the nations we live in. These attacks are hitting health, education, manufacturing, power, communications, food, water, finance, and so on. You may recognize these terms as belonging to a country's critical infrastructure, or if you prefer, critical national infrastructure. And I'll come back to this shortly. The attack surface for us as individuals and the organizations we are a part of gets bigger by the day, it's bigger by the hour. Bigger in terms of the sheer quantity of things we need to protect, but also the attack surface is becoming increasingly complicated, and the data we want protected is now moving at machine speeds, i.e. faster than we can think, understand, or contemplate. If you've ever suffered a cyber attack, you will know that the time for thinking, understanding, and contemplation can go out the window very quickly. When it comes to protection against cyber attack, everyone has a part to play, whether this is in defense, fighting back, awareness of the threat, training others, or simply dealing with all the issues that cyber causes. But today I'm going to talk about government in general terms. And while it could be about all levels of government, federal, state, provincial, territory, municipal, much of what I say pertains to the federal governments in the US and Canada, i.e. the government with a president or a prime minister. We rely on government for many aspects of what it takes to run and maintain the country, and it can often be the helper of last resort, whether that's taking kinetic action against an aggressor, establishing new laws to help us, being the lender of last resort in a financial crisis, or simply negotiating a good trade deal. But we're naive if we think that government is all-powerful and that it doesn't face constraints in its ability to deal with an issue, in this case, cyber attack. Government needs to protect itself before it can protect us. Think of the safety briefings we hear when we fly around the US and Canada. When oxygen masks fall from the panel above, we're told to fit our own masks before helping others. We need government to protect itself before it tries to protect others. Otherwise, the delivery of assistance to us, while government itself is under attack, will be compromised by government being at best distracted or at worst unable to help due to, let's say, a massive ransomware attack that sucks in the entire remediation investigative resources of the state. Government is faced with the same cyber threats that we have all come to recognize, but it has a particular role in dealing with those that come from other nation states or those that come from state-sponsored, or should we say state-protected, threat actors. These attacks are well-resourced, have enough people involved in executing them, and budget is unlikely to be a constraint for them. These attacks are most often about good old-fashioned espionage or gaining political, economic, or military advantage without actually starting a shooting war. Over the last couple of years, we have seen threat actors attacking government supply chains in order to get inside government, which is actually a testament to the fact that government is protecting itself, and so attackers have to seek ways in via third parties. But alas, they do, and sometimes successfully. A key area under threat, and one that is being increasingly highlighted by government, is critical infrastructure. Critical infrastructure is absolutely vital to the well-being and running of any country, and it involves the services that we need to live in the modern world. These areas have always been of interest to threat actors, and the threat of attack has been constant. But recent developments and actual attacks, for instance the Colonial Pipeline attack last year, and the war in Ukraine this year, have really revealed the scale and scope of the threat. Most critical infrastructure runs on operational technology, OT, sometimes called industrial control systems, rather than IT, information technology. And OT is a more fragile beast than IT for a variety of legacy reasons. IT is now rapidly converging with OT in critical infrastructure, and thus brings the benefits of IT, but also the familiar threat landscape that I described earlier, to this more fragile and yet extremely important fact in modern life. Government in both the US and Canada has been very vocal this year in disclosing intelligence to support advice and guidance to those organizations running critical infrastructure, so that they are ready to deal with potential attacks. In both the US and Canada, critical infrastructure is overwhelmingly run by the private sector, but government has a key role to play here in advanced warning about threat, but also in terms of law, policy, standards and mandates, as we have seen in both countries. In looking at how government can better support itself in cybersecurity, and thus support us, I would like to see more cooperation with the private sector at all levels. Neither the private nor the public sector have all the answers, but the private sector is where innovation is continuous, really encouraged, and where success and failure happen quickly. This is because the private sector can move faster than government, much faster, and thus can adapt to an ever-changing cyber landscape quicker. Some of the most advanced cybersecurity programs sit in the private sector, particularly in finance. And when government engages with these private organizations and the advances they have made, we get the chance to help government and thus help everyone. I spoke a few moments ago about government disclosing security intelligence to the public with regard to cybersecurity. Sharing of intelligence is good, especially when it's both ways, but government should not rely too heavily on threat intelligence for defense preparation. Threat intelligence, whatever its origins, is invaluable for adding context and evaluating prioritization for known attacks and ongoing campaigns. But knowledge of known threat implies the existence of victims before we have solutions. Also, threat intelligence allows you to try and catch up with attackers, but it does not allow you to get ahead. If government can improve its visibility of the admittedly extremely complicated attack surface, it will improve its ability to see threat in real time and then to respond in real time, right across the digital environment. In doing this, it will mean being able to harden the environment and identify critical attack paths before threat actors do, bearing in mind that threat actors are sometimes on networks for months looking for these vulnerabilities. This will get government ahead of attackers. I mentioned the speed of innovation in the private sector. Government needs to be able to onboard and adopt new security technologies faster than attackers, be they nation states or an increasingly sophisticated and well-organized criminal cyber world. There's a cyber arms race going on between defensive and offensive cyber capability, and the government needs to be more agile. Getting ahead of the majority of threat actors also requires taking some of the easiest steps and adopting basic cyber best practices. Human beings really are our most valuable resource, but if they don't get the right information at the right time in the right place, they will not be able to recognize threat when it lands in the inbox or the messaging system or goes unnoticed while browsing the web. And speaking of human beings, government teams are overtaxed and stretched thin. This probably sounds familiar to many of you. Government needs to be using good technology to augment their ability to broaden and accelerate cyber situational awareness and shorten the mean time to understanding and response. This isn't about using technology to replace human beings, but to support them and put the advantage back in the hands of the human defenders. And lastly, the role of nation and non-nation state cyber aggression, in tandem with or in response to military, diplomatic, social, or economic actions, is only expanding. Government can start to get and stay steps ahead of these adversaries by recognizing the national security impact of cyber.